Hi guys, my name is Shayda Campbell and this is an 11th apartment video. Today's tutorial is all about Christmas. There will be lots of other Christmas goodies over the next few months, but this is the first one of 2016, so let's get started. Okay guys, so you can see here I've done my sort of typical one-page illustration, and it's just showcasing all of the things that I want to focus on in today's illustration tutorial. I've gone for a theme of sort of very traditional Christmas icons, and I want to start there and focus on really those most traditional of holiday themes, and we can get a little more creative in weeks to come, but let's just start at the beginning. So today we're going to talk about, designing snowmen and snowflakes, Christmas baubles and gifts, different plants like pine and holly and the poinsettia. We may get to the deer, but I may save deer and reindeer for next week. And I just want to get started there so that you guys can start practicing and developing sort of your holiday illustrative style. And I want this video to kind of serve as a reference guide so that when we do a tutorial on designing your own Christmas card, you can come back and say you want to put a snowman on your greeting card. You can practice along with me in this video because this is just all about the illustration. All right, so let's put pen to paper and start drawing some of these holiday items. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to draw is the pine sprigs and the pine cones, and they're both quite simple. To do the sprigs, draw the length, the stems, any which way you like. So I've got mine sort of going down here. I like to thicken them slightly, and then I just put these little V shapes along the entire length, and you can do those V's as close together or as far apart as you like. And those are your pine sprigs. I think the key is just to thicken them ever so slightly. Now for the pine cone, it's actually quite simple. Take a pencil and draw any shape that you want, and then you're just going to make these little shingle type shapes, sort of coming down the length of the circle or the oval that you drew. And you can see, you can just sort of make them imperfect, and they look quite cute. Has a really whimsical look to it. So I'll show you that again. Draw whatever shape. You can do an egg shape, an oval, a circle, whatever you like. And you put your little pine sprigs there by the pine cone. And then you're making these little shingle type sections, and quite simple. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be aligned or anything like that. And that's how you do your little pine cones. So pretty straightforward. Now we'll move on and we'll do some holly. So there's many different ways that you can draw the holly. I like to start with the twig, and then I draw these pairs of leaves going all down the stem, and you get slightly larger as you go down the stem, or you can make all of the leaf pairs the same size. And we've done those leaves before, but you can use that design to create a really sort of Christmassy branches and berries, and I'm doing mine green here, and then I'm going to add some red berries so you get that really Christmassy feel, and you're using illustrative styles that you've probably already worked on in the past. So that's a great one if you're not comfortable branching out and trying anything too crazy. And then now I'll show you how to do a more traditional holly. I like to start by just doing 3 berries. Draw your 2 pencil lines, sort of showing you the trajectory of where those leaves are going to go. And then for the holly, you sort of go out and you go in, out again, and come to a point at the top there. So let me show you a second time on the other leaf here. So you go out from the start of the line, then you come in with a bit of a semicircle. So those 2 lines going in, and then you're going to go out again and then come to a point at the top. So that's the holly. It sort of reminds me of the holly I would have drawn as a kid. Very traditional. All right, we'll do a poinsettia. This one is not so different from other flowers that I've shown you in past videos. I start by doing the middle of the flower, and to do that I just lay down a whole bunch of dots and circles and sort of little scribbles. And then we're going to draw 4 petals, and they come to a point at the outer tip there. And if it helps to keep those straight, you can draw a cross. And then we're going to do 4 more petals in between those initial petals. And if it helps you to keep it symmetrical, move the page with you when you're drawing those petals, and that should help you to keep the shape correct. And then finally, we'll just add some leaves. And I like to put some veining on the leaves so that the leaves don't get mistaken for the actual flower petals. And that's all there is to the poinsettia. Pretty iconic, and you can color it in red or white, and I think people will know what it is. And finally, I'll just show you, I like to add little twigs and berries to a lot of my holiday illustrations. Berries, as I've said before, are just great for filler on any floral project, on any wreath or border where you're doing flowers. So you can do any sort of size or shape of twig, and then just add a few little circles for berries, and you can put a little pinpoint on each one, and that sort of brings your berries to life. Alright, the next thing that we're going to tackle is the snowflake. And the snowflake is best started on a piece of graph paper, and that will help you to make it symmetrical, which helps with the overall design, I think. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a line and mark its center point. So if you're doing, like I am, 4 squares or 8 squares, and so there's 4 on each side of the center, then you're going to go out 4 and 4 squares on each side. So now you've got this symmetrical cross, and then you're going to do one more symmetrical cross here, at sort of an X. And they're all 4 squares in length on this graph paper, or they're all the same size coming out from the center. And I like to just thicken each of them up a little bit, so I sort of draw a double line there just to give that snowflake a little more body. And then I do these 2 little V shapes on each line, and the V's, don't worry about getting them exactly the same spot or the same length apart. It's going to look fine no matter where you put them. And then just add a few little dots of snow around, and it sort of makes that snowflake pop. Now, to transfer your snowflake off of your graph paper, what you'll do is grab a piece of tracing paper and just trace over your initial design. So you're going to transfer the image onto the tracing paper. Then when you're all done tracing, you're going to grab your piece of good copy paper, whether it's cardstock or watercolor, place the traced image onto that paper, stick it in place with a piece of washi tape, then grab your graphite transfer paper and place it under the trace dark side down, and then take a mechanical pencil or something similarly thin and just trace over that image one more time in order to transfer it. Of course, when the image is transferred, you can paint it, you can go over it in marker, or you can just do like I'm doing here and go over it with your Sharpie pen. So moving on, I've begun a little greeting card here. On a piece of watercolor paper, I've written, "May your year be merry and bright," in cursive, and I'm going to sort of copy the Christmas baubles that you see at the top of my page over to the left here. And I think this idea of having these Christmas ornaments hanging down as if they're dropping from beyond the top of the page is a really sort of fun illustrative idea, and it's very simple to do, and it has this really polished and minimal look when you're all done. And it's really as simple as drawing some vertical lines with circles at the bottom, or you could do any shape you like, but it's just that easy. The one thing you'll want to think about is just how you're going to space them, and where you're going to place your largest ornament, where you're going to place some smaller ones, medium size. So you might want to sketch it out to begin with and see what looks right. And you can do any shape you like. I'm mostly focusing on just little very traditional round ornaments, but you could do stars or ovals or teardrop shapes. But of course you can just do what I'm doing and do these little round ones, and don't worry about getting them perfectly round, although you could be tracing a coin or something, I guess. But I sort of like the look of them being sort of funny looking and very much not the perfect circle. So I think that looks kind of cute, and I like to go back in and add a secondary line on some of them to give it a more sketchy quality, and I think it comes off looking quite whimsical. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do my faux calligraphy or my fake calligraphy. So I've already have my cursive font here, and then I'm going to go in and thicken on the downstroke of each letter. And that just gives me that look of calligraphy without, of course, the work of doing real calligraphy. So now that I've got my lettering all done, I'm going to add a bit of detail onto the baubles. And you could do as much detail as you like, do a few stripes or polka dots or hearts, or of course you could just do some nice color, and I think that would look lovely. The last illustration that we're going to go over today, we're also going to do on a sort of pretend greeting card. So I've got a piece of watercolor here with a little border already done, and I'm just going to talk about illustrating snowmen. Now this is probably something you've been drawing since you were a kid. There's a lot of different ways to do a snowman. It's all about how you want to present this, you know, very traditional Christmas image. It's totally up to you. I like to do a sort of melty snowman, so he's flat on the bottom. I like to do a two-piece snowman, so he's not made up of 3 snowballs. He's only a body and a head. And I just make him sort of very bulbous and lumpy, and very sort of imperfect looking. And then you can think about what sort of hat do you want to give your snowman, if any. On the one I did a little top hat. Here I'm just doing a Santa hat. And I tend to always give my snowman a few buttons, and I like to give him some little twig arms, and for that I'll usually do one arm coming out of the body where you can see it, so that you can see that it's poked into the snow, and then I'll do one arm extending from beyond the other side of the snowball so you can't see it. So that makes him look a little more three-dimensional, just doing that little trick there. And if you don't want to do the Santa hat, the top hat is quite simple to draw. And you can decide if you want to give him a scarf, if you want him to have a carrot nose. That's all up to you. It's a lot of fun choosing all these little design elements. But this guy, I'm just going to give him sort of a big smile. He's kind of a goofy snowman. Actually, if you look up vintage snowmen on Google, you'll see some funny greeting cards with snowmen that were actually like snowmen, pretty literal, so it's kind of funny. And then I'm just going to write Merry Christmas at the bottom in a very simple font. I'm just mixing uppercase and lowercase letters, so I call that my greeting card font. And it's just a simple print, but it looks quite cute. So I'm going to write Merry Christmas, and then that's that. I'll add a little bit of watercolor to all of these images. And here's a little trick. You can actually add watercolor on top of your Sharpie lines. Now that won't work with just any artist pen, but if you've put down your pencil sketch or your transfer and you've gone over it with your Sharpie, you can actually add paint afterwards. So that's pretty cool, and it won't even bleed. The reason that I'm adding the paint at the end is because I want to show you guys the illustration tutorial with pen so that you can see it well on camera, and then I find it's really nice that I can go in afterwards and add a little bit of color. So just a fun trick. You can add watercolor to your illustrations after the pen is already on the page if the pen is a Sharpie. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, as usual, please don't hesitate to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next Friday with a new tutorial. Over the next couple weeks, there's going to be lots of Christmas and holiday goodies, so get excited for that. We're going to do gift wrap and our own greeting cards and some fun DIY gifting. If you want to find me in between these tutorials, you can always connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at